Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Hybrid Fitness Report. My name is Paul Reynolds.
My name's Jude Reynolds.
We've got a bunch of updates from the world of hybrid fitness racing for you this week. And also, we've got our training updates for the week that has just been a review of the DC Hyrox Regionals. And then the first in our series looking at hybrid fitness racing stations. So this week we're looking at squats. Jude's going to take us through that, what to expect, how to train for it, what good form looks like. And we'll get into that a little bit later. First of all, just to run through a few of the things that have been going on in hybrid fitness racing during the week. Other than the big race in Washington, D.C., there have been a number of items that have come up. And one of the things that came up was that DEKA, one of our favorite hybrid fitness races, have just cancelled prize money for all non-World Championship events, which they subsequently said was other than 3 regionals, all of which are in the US. So the 3 US regionals have prize money, the World Championships have prize money, and nothing else does. Any particular thoughts about that?
Well, I thought it was interesting seeing Kat Fassbender comment on DEKA socials itself about asking where her prize money is. So I don't know. There are a couple of hybrid sports in the area now that have supposedly had complaints about athletes not receiving their prize money. And so I'm just wondering, is this DEKA accepting that they're not going to be able to get their prize money to the athletes on time? And so they're just withdrawing it completely, which takes away any confusion. So I think in a way, although prize money is better than no prize money, and maybe even late prize money is better than no prize money, I think the fact that some haven't received them to this day, and they're months, sometimes even years late, I think it's just better and keeps it simple to keep it to the regionals anyway.
Which is happening at the same time, not coincidentally, as Deadly Dozen is kind of redoubling its marketing efforts, saying how big the UK Championships prize money will be next month. So they've got another post up saying how much money is available for all of that. I remember chatting with Jason on the pod about it, and he was like, he said his accountant's not a happy man because, you know, they're making plenty of money, but he's trying to plow a lot of it straight back into stuff like this. And never mind the fact that he's just built a giant institute of fitness racing, which is Hyrox accredited and DEKA accredited, as well as being the headquarters of Deadly, which I think is just awesome. And we've got to get up there at some point in the next 3 or 4 months together to check that place out. But yeah, so Deadly's doubling down on the prize money. DEKA's retreating a little bit from it. Meanwhile, Hybrid Games, who seem to be in the news every couple of months with accusations of people not getting money they're owed. So the company that ran Hybrid Games London has gone into administration. So it's obvious that they have different entities running events in different cities, different legal entities. So we don't know what the shakeout of that's going to be, whether anyone's going to bail that out or whether they'll have some kind of rescue package. I don't know what impact that has on Farnborough, which is the next one you're due to attend next month. So hopefully that can still go ahead, and hopefully they can sort out whatever's going on there. I think it's just a reminder, in part, actually, and we know this. I think speaking to a lot of events directors and race directors and so on, is that from the outside you look at an event with hundreds and hundreds of people attending, and you go, "Oh wow, they're making loads of money," but actually, none of them are. And Hyrox is only making money because it has insane numbers. You know, when we were chatting to Dean from ACTUF, for example, he's going, well, you know, if we have 600 people, that's a good race day, and that doesn't make you loads of money. That just, you know, you can just wash your face with that. You just get by on that, and you can do another one. So it's hybrid fitness racing is both incredibly popular and immensely difficult to make money on because events are just so expensive. So it's incredibly financially unforgiving, which is, I think it's partly why we wanted to do these interviews with UK races to offer support, kind of publicity support for some of these guys. And when you see people that kind of love the sport and are making their best efforts at it, you want to kind of try to help them. Looking briefly at CrossFit, we spoke last week about how they seem to be slightly obsessing over Hyrox, and even CrossFit Corporate was started liking posts taking mick out of Hyrox in what's becoming a slightly tired way about squat depth. And we pointed out that I think 26.1 exposed that it's not just Hyroxes that aren't universally 100% going to brilliant depth. You've got top CrossFit athletes that seem to not go to depth on anything. It comes back to, you doing a squat or you're doing 140 something?
More than
on
that.
26 point. Yeah, it's just an insane amount of squats. Did notice a fairly familiar name, ranked number 3 in the UK on 26.1. He doesn't seem to post about such things very much, but Charlie Bottrell came 3rd, unless there's another Charlie Bottrell out there who's brilliant at such things. But if you look at the UK rankings for CrossFit 26.1, that's Charlie Bottrell. Well, it's Charlie Bottrell with one L. So maybe it's the French Charlie Bottrell, Charlie Bottrell or something, but I'm pretty sure that's our guy right there. Didn't see him shout about it.
Because I looked it up, and he came 100 and something. So I would be surprised. That makes sense.
But he didn't make the 12-minute cutoff. He scored 340 points, which had him ranked between Harry Lightfoot, who came in first, unsurprisingly, and some guy I don't know in second, who's obviously a splendid chap, but I don't know him. But Charlie Bottrell with one L came in 3rd. But the only thing I saw with Charlie this week was him at In-N-Out Burger with
was he
with Dutch name, English guy, Josh Van Zeeland.
Oh yeah, they were doing an advert for it, weren't they, or something to do with that?
They were doing their celeb interview at In-N-Out Burger.
Oh yes, yeah. So I'm really annoyed I didn't get to do 26.1. I really wanted to.
You didn't do it. Why didn't you do it?
Because I watched Medeiros' video and it put me off. His leg was going into muscle spasms like 3 minutes after. And he's a 2-time CrossFit Games champion. I was like, I've an A race in 2 weeks.
Not a CrossFit Finals champion? You don't mean a CrossFit Finals champion?
No, that's a reference to the last episode. Okay, it's not the finals, it's the CrossFit Games.
So CrossFit World Champion, yes.
Yeah, 2 times. And his leg was going into spasms. And there was reports of these elite CrossFit athletes feeling awful DOMs 2 or 3 days after. And I didn't want to sort of jeopardize my Glasgow training for possibly a whole week just because of one workout. So I do definitely intend to do it. It's just going to be after Glasgow at some point. So I'll see if I can sort of get into that. I quite like wall balls and I'm quite good at box jumps. So I'm hoping it'll be a decent workout for me. I don't really have a rep goal in mind, but I definitely want to do that. Don't fancy 26.2 because that's a lot of, body weight stuff, but 26.1, I'll give it a go.
Well, we should film that and stick it on the pod.
Yeah.
While I hold the camera, obviously, because, if it's more than 3 wall balls, then I'm going to struggle.
Well, the thing is that you could do it because it's a 12-minute time cap, so we're going to be working for the same amount of time regardless.
I don't need that kind of humiliation, though. Although it kind of would be quite funny to see me doing it next to you, and we do have 2 different wall ball weights. It would get pity views, which I'm okay with. Yeah, I'm okay with pity views. Yeah. Okay, so that's that bit, and backing then into Hyrox, I don't usually like taking talking points from other podcasters. I kind of want them to know that we're not doing that. If they've majored on something, it's like, okay, we're not copying you, so we'll steer clear of that for a while, even if I was thinking of doing it. The exception, I think, is something like this, which has just blown up, and hybrid fitness media have brought a couple of things to our attention. In the global sense. One of which is from the Washington DC event that's just been. So regional events. So it's not just any old Hyrox. It's a regional event with qualifying opportunity for the Worlds. And there was one competitor, a doctor, and she was unable to attend the Friday briefing, which is an important thing that tells you all you need to know to make sure that the event runs smoothly. And so they said, sorry, you can't race. And her immediate response is, well, dang, but I get it. Fair enough. Then she finds out someone else had missed the briefing and was allowed to race. And of course, there could be a legit reason for that. I can't think what one would be off the top of my head, but there could be a legit reason for that. But for whatever reason, Hyrox have chosen not to share what any reasoning is with anybody. And then even worse than that, what they've done is for the Hyrox World Championships in 2 months' time in Stockholm, the over 60 category, which has a lot of insanely good athletes to the point that there are quite a lot of people who've qualified for the singles and the doubles. Hyrox decided to put the singles and doubles on the same day in Stockholm. So if you qualified in both, originally slated for different days, they're now on the same day, and obviously you can't do it, and you have to pick one, which is outrageous. And again, it's one of those things, it sounds a little bit like some kind of admin error or something, because you'd think, obviously you wouldn't mean to do that. Obviously you'd find a workaround so it doesn't just completely mess up all those people. But again, there's no comment yet. No one's even come out and said, we didn't mean it, but we're struggling to find a workaround, or we did do that. We thought it wouldn't affect more than maybe 1 or 2 people. We'll see what we can do. There's just silence on it. Usually I've found Hyrox are pretty good at coming back quickly and going, here's what we're doing to fix this thing that obviously isn't quite right. Looking at the DC event itself, though, that was a biggie.
Yeah.
Tell us how the event went, and then tell us what from your predictions was interesting or surprising.
So I thought the event was cool. It's the first of its kind in Hyrox because obviously we've gone away from having 4 majors and 1 LCQ, last chance qualifier. Like we said in the previous episode, you have 3 regionals where 1 qualifies from each, and they're all continentally based. So you had the Americas this time, and it was just cool to see the variety of athlete that got to compete on an Elite 15 stage. So you had some people in here in the North Americas who qualified, who near the bottom end of like those who qualified in 11th or 12th with a similar time to me. So seeing like athletes at my level compete on an Elite 15 stage was quite cool. You had on the men's side, you had Cole Learn qualify for Stockholm, the World Championships, with 22 seconds off the world record, which
and he was close. He was close before wall balls, and then he broke.
Yeah, I thought 65 wall balls in, he had it. That's how close it was. But he broke twice, I think, somewhere around the 70 and somewhere around the 85.
No, not 85, my young friend. Although maybe 85, but he broke at 94. So I would like you to retract derogatory comments you have made about me, about the kind of person that breaks in the 90s. What is it you said about me when I broke at 94? I did
fail to mention what I thought was obvious in that if you were that close to a world record, you're still cool.
Doesn't that make it worse?
So does it make it worse? No, because even if you didn't break at 94, you still wouldn't have gotten it.
He wouldn't. And he did say afterwards, he said, I went in thinking I had a chance at it. And so he wasn't going in doing, what's the best way to do wall balls? Because he'd have broken at 50 or 40. Mm-hmm. He was going in thinking, I've got an outside chance at the record. Let's empty the tank and see what happens. And he did empty the tank. And he had plenty of room to still win, which he did. It was fantastic.
I messaged Cole, I think, before and after, just saying like how cool it is to see an athlete of his build, which looking at him, he looks like low 90s, as in 92 kg, 93 kg, being able to almost set a world record. And obviously, as someone who looks more like Cole than Team Venus, I was just messaging him saying, that's why you're one of my favorite Elite 15 athletes, is because you look like that and perform like that. And that sort of gives me a lot of confidence to, one day maybe I could sort of perform that whilst, having the body type that I do.
Did you reply?
Yeah, Cole Learn. Yeah, we were messaging. I was messaging about coaching and stuff like that, and so he was
awesome.
Talking about that as well. So it was cool. And then
did you ask him? Did you ask him whether he threatened Frederick Dubé with personal annihilation if he protested the result?
No, we're talking about that.
Hey boss, can I protest the result?
Yeah. So one of the rules in Hyrox that you're not allowed to do is called self-cooling, where you splash water on yourself. Probably because it's a safety hazard if someone slips on the water that you splashed on yourself. Cole Learn did that in front of 3 judges, which is blatantly illegal. But they were saying you have an hour to appeal as an athlete to get that person disqualified. And the person that would have qualified was this guy who came in 3rd called Frederick Dubé, who is coached by Cole Learn. And so that would have kicked Cole Learn out of the World Championships, having put Frederick Dubé in, who got a time of 54.53, which is still extremely good. But it just wasn't Cole Learn's time. And so it would have been a bit...
I'm sure if Cole Learn gained an advantage, it was an advantage of at least a second rather than a minute.
No. But so I don't know what I think about athlete-protested rules. I think if it's a rule, enforce it. If it's not, don't. I don't think there's much point in having, if an athlete protested, because then athletes get away with stuff. Like Joanna Wettrick with her gels, Cole Learn with the self-cooling. In and of themselves, do I think they should be a rule if I was in charge? No, I personally don't care. Safety, maybe that, whatever. But I think have a rule or don't have a rule. Disqualify them if they break it in any form. Don't if they don't. I don't think the whole athlete protesting is.
Exactly. Otherwise, you make the protesting athlete, the villain. It's like, oh, you protested, but that's my guy, and he didn't gain a big advantage, and that's so unfair. And how could you? I absolutely agree. Don't make the athletes into the gits for protesting something. Just apply the rules, or don't make the rules so strict. If disqualifying someone for chucking water over their head is overdoing it, give them a time penalty or a warning or something. So for the men, you've got Learn, and then you had Dylan, who spoke about how his race was all messed up, and it was so messed up that he came in second. Dubé came in third, and I've been interested listening to Rich Ryan talking about it, because he said he underperformed your predictions, which I think is the most disappointing thing for him personally.
Oh yeah,
and he went in as second ranked, was hoping to win, and came in eighth. And he basically said he went out too hot, which again speaks to the margins being so fine. And you're seeing a lot of those kind of conversations now in the last 6 to 12 months about top athletes going, I was a tiny fraction off it and it blew me up completely. Because if you pitch your effort wrong, you can ruin your whole race.
Yeah, and that's I think also speaks volumes about Dylan, because Dylan had just come back from a knee injury. He had 48 hours off of training, which he never has. Did not have an ideal sort of build for this race, and then still, as we'll go on to speak about, won the doubles with Stephen Pelkfer. So I think, obviously Rich Ryan wasn't in peak form.
Any other performances you want to draw attention to from the men's before we move to the women's?
I guess a couple that underperformed were Jack Driscoll and Ryan Douglas, who I've spoken with quite a bit in the past. And I think Jack Driscoll released also on his Instagram as well, just saying how he's won the same or more races than almost anyone else in Hyrox this season, if not the most, then tied most. And he's just outraced himself. He was saying, finally, it's caught up to me, because everyone was saying it, and he's like, no. But finally, it caught up to me, it looked like, because he was out winning, and then he comes in 10th, which in this field is still respectable, but by his standards, I put him 5th, I think.
Although the doubles, the two of them did great.
They didn't do what they wanted. It wasn't one of their best races. But like you said, Ryan Douglas as well. I was texting him after, and his wall balls just fell apart. I mean, he came in 61 something. I raced him in Vancouver, and he got 56. So we know what they're both capable of. It's just timing their races and just making sure they're not overworked, as Jack was saying, because both of them are way better than that, and they know that. But I'm sure they'll come back in their next race stronger.
Shout out to Ryan Douglas, great friend of the show, and it was nice meeting those two in Vancouver. So hopefully they'll be on it again soon. What about the ladies?
So Lauren Weeks won, which was not much of a surprise to anyone, but how close she got to the world record was. So she came in with 56.27, which, considering how much she struggled on the sleds, was just incredible. I mean, she was also, I think I was watching Race Brain, so shout out to them for the stats, namely Jack Bauer. But she had, out of the men and the women, the second quickest run out of every single athlete, men and women, in the event, which is just insane. I think she averaged run plus rock zone of 3:31 per kilometer. That's including picking up the sandbag and walking to the start of the lunges, by the way. It is the craziest display of running I have seen from a woman in this sport.
So just to be clear, if anyone listening isn't aware that running distance is one of the things that is identical for men and women. So across all the men and all the women, Lauren Weeks had the second best running time.
Yeah.
Who beat her then? Cole?
No.
Who?
Dylan,
I was going to say, okay, yeah. So the guy who won the men's event and came within 22 seconds of the world record was slower than Lauren Weeks.
Yes. Yeah, Cole.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so she did incredible. Along with Vivian Tafudo, who as well I thought would come second. She had a far quicker qualifying time other than Lauren Weeks to everyone else, so that was really good. Seeing her come in at 59 flat, almost breaking 59, which is incredible. And then Morgan Schultz, who came third qualifying herself for the singles in Stockholm, and then won the next day, came second the next day with Kat in second. So that's really cool. Really well done for Morgan. She's been on the scene for like 6 years now, so it was awesome to see her finally get that ticket to Stockholm.
Cool. And anything from the doubles events that stands out?
I think just seeing the world record be broken again by Laura Weeks and Vivian Tafudo. Vivian Tafudo has now run, again, Race Brain. Thank you for the stats. This is from them. If you want to see sort of some really intricate stats with Hyrox, they're really good with them. Vivian Tafudo has run 3 pro doubles races in her life, and she has broken the world record for doubles 3 times. That is one of the craziest things I have ever heard. She's broken it with Laura Weeks all 3 times. Those two as a doubles pairing are just unbelievable. So seeing them versus just Petra and Joanna Wittrick in Stockholm is going to be really cool to see. Even with Sinead Bent and Lucy, because they were only 20 seconds behind Joanna when they last raced or something like that. So that's going to be a great fight up front.
Is the other Lauren still injured? Because Vivian came in as a new partner for Lauren Weeks.
Yes, Lauren Griffith raced. She raced the 103.54 as on the solos, actually. So it's cool to see her back. She's not in peak shape. So I spoke with her at DEKA, and she was still suffering from an injury then, and that was in December, and it sounded quite serious. But yeah, she came with the 103, so she's still one of the fastest women in the world, but she's not the Lauren Griffith that she can be. So hopefully next season she'll be able to get back to that form.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, we'll take a pause at this moment to remind folks about our sponsors. Hybrid Fitness Report is sponsored by Wadleet, a UK-based sports clothing company. Founded by an Ironman athlete, designed for functional fitness, hybrid and endurance sports. Ready for training and race day. If you need brand name performance and quality from your clothing without brand name markups in price, you need Wadleet. For free delivery on all UK orders over £50 and to see their full range, go to wadleet.co.uk. That's WODLETE.co.uk today and use code HFRPOD20, HFRPOD20 at checkout for 20% off your order. So now we're on to our main segment, which is to talk about the first in our series of looks at hybrid fitness racing stations. And today we're looking at squats. So perhaps, Jude, if you could first of all give us a definition of what a squat is, and probably also what it isn't, and how that maybe varies between different sports.
Yeah, so it's one of the hardest to judge because of how you look at it is quite subjective because it's quite hard to tell. So the majority of sports, the majority of hybrid racing competitions, you define a squat as going from a standing position where your hips are locked out to have full extension, so you're standing up straight, to squatting down. So when you drop your hips below the level of your knees, so that means almost sitting down to a very, very low chair, and then standing up again to full extension. That's what equals a squat in most races. However, certain events judge it differently. So with Hyrox, with Ethics, with hybrid games, the standard is on paper, when you sit down into the squat position, your hips must drop below your knees. That is often, however, quite hard to tell because people's bodies are shaped differently, they're wearing different clothes. And so that's why, as we mentioned earlier about CrossFit 26.1, Hyrox isn't the only sport that struggles to judge squats. People in general struggle to judge squats because it is so hard to tell when you're judging by fine margins. So that's what a squat is, and a whole load of races use them. You've got Hyrox, Deadly Dozen, Hybrid Games, Ethics, Turf Games, Nuclear Fit. But one that surprisingly doesn't is DEKA. So there are some movements that require a squat-like movement, but there is no strict squat pattern. Whereas in Hyrox, you've got the wall balls, which is essentially a thruster with a wall ball, which the first movement of a wall ball is a squat, followed by a push press or a shoulder press, whatever you want to call it, to throw the ball against the target. In Deadly Dozen, you have the goblet squat, again, which we can go into a little bit. In Ethics, it's usually a barbell squat. In Turf Games, again, usually a barbell squat. So all over in multiple and all of the famous and commonly raced hybrid events, there is a form of a squat, whether it's front-loaded with a goblet like in Deadly Dozen and in a wall ball, or it's rear-loaded like in Ethics with the back squat.
Okay, so squat being one of the foundational human movements is, I think, why a lot of these guys have it in there. What do the different parts of your body do in order to perform a squat? Or when you get up from the sofa, what is your body actually doing?
So it's a compound movement, meaning it incorporates multiple muscle groups. And so when you do a squat, you'll be bracing, maybe even subconsciously, things like your core, your hamstrings will be bracing, your calves will be stabilizing, a whole load of muscles are recruited. But the primary mover or the agonistic muscle group in this circumstance is going to be the quadriceps. You'll also use your glutes quite prominently as well during the movement. But the primary mover, the agonist during a squat, are the quadriceps.
What does agonist mean? I can think of what it might mean, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't mean what I think it means.
Primary mover. So just meaning the muscle group that engages the most to carry out that movement. So for example, a bench press, the antagonist, meaning the opposite to the agonist, would be the back muscles. So you've obviously there are certain names to the back muscles, but we'll just go with back muscles. The agonist of a bench press would be the chest. So it's just the primary mover, and then the antagonist would just be the opposite to that muscle.
So in literature, you have a protagonist and an antagonist, and in fitness, you have an agonist and an antagonist.
Yes.
Okay, that's super weird. All right, carry
I
on.
don't think they relate in any way.
Well,
In fact,
it
I
is
know they don't.
because the protagonist in a novel is the main character,
But there's no
and
protagonist in fitness.
but that's exactly what I'm saying. In literature, you have a protagonist who's the main character, and the antagonist who's going against the protagonist. Whereas in fitness, you
in
don't
that
have
respect,
protagonists; you just have agonists
Yeah. Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah.
and an antagonist. Except the antagonist isn't working against, but it's working the opposite, but helping, right?
Yeah.
So the antagonist muscle isn't hindering the agonist muscle; it's
Usually
working
a
with it.
supporting. Yeah,
There we
supporting
go.
muscle.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So it's a great movement for working out a lot of different parts of your body, and you're saying it's mainly the quads supported by the glutes, but with other things helping out, right?
Yeah, it's on paper the simplest and most common movement we could do. So at some point in our lives, we all had access to that range of motion. It's just over time, people have been either neglecting. Yeah.
At one point in our lives, we all had access to that range of movement.
Yeah.
It's
it's
a wonderfully corporate way of saying we used to be able to get up from a chair.
Yeah. At everyone's point in life, unless obviously external factors permitting, you were able to do an astrograph squat. So what's happened between then and now is either A, you've neglected movement, and so that range of motion has been reduced and your strength has been reduced, or B, you've been taught how to squat with a load of weight without any form. And so what's been drilled into your neuromuscular system is a squat that you think looks good, but in reality looks like crap. So it's all about what you've been trained to do. And that's sort of what we're going to get onto a little bit in your training is all these PTs that have taught people and just fueled their ego by letting them lump a load of weight on the bar, and yet they're not squatting properly. So sort of that's what I want to get into the training side of things.
Right. So what is a good squat and what is a bad squat, and what's the problem with doing a bad squat?
So with a good squat, what you really want, what sort of lends itself to the whole movement looking, feeling, and functioning really well is a tall torso. So assuming you have a good range of motion, which will contribute, a few factors will contribute towards that, will be ankle mobility, hip mobility, and torso, sort of how vertical your torso is. You'll see a lot of Olympic lifters, in order to lift a load of heavy weight on the bar, which is a very specific exercise, they'll do something called a low bar squat, where the barbell is positioned on their back, lower down, they're hinged forward, and they squat like that. Other than that, it is highly likely that you will benefit from having a taller torso, which will enable you to open up your hips a bit more, breathe easier at the bottom of the squat, and reach that range of motion where you're sitting down with your hips, as I said earlier, descending past the height of your knees. And
when you say, sorry, hang on. When you say you're better off having a taller torso, do you mean being more upright?
Yeah. So going down and hinging, when I say hinging, I mean is pushing your bum back almost and bringing your chest forward. What it's going to do is two things. Number one, it's going to limit your breathing. As I said, you can't breathe as well with your torso. Move forward with your torso hunched over like that. Your airways are opened up. You're a lot more upright and a lot more you're in a better position when you're taller. So that's always going to help. And also, like I said, if your ankle and hip mobility are of a decent standard, you will be able to hit depth a lot easier in that taller, more vertical position.
And that's almost a separate topic unto itself, isn't it? If you're lacking flexibility, doing a bit more flexibility work with stretching programs so that you can bend better.
Yeah, so often with people, their torso might be really good, and you've been taught to have a really good brace with your core, and you sit down into a squat really tall. But because people's ankle mobility isn't there, or they have really stiff hamstrings or hips, they still can't get all the way down to the bottom, and they'll end up squatting onto their toes. And squatting onto their toes, objectively, if you think about your foot is the base of everything. Everything goes through your foot in a squat because you're sitting down into that squat position. The less of a base of a surface area you create with your foot, the less power you're going to have to drive up. If you're squatting on your toes, you can only apply pressure through X amount of your foot. Whereas if you're squatting through your heels and your whole foot is flat on the ground, you have a lot more surface area to apply pressure through. And so you can afford to apply more pressure through your foot, aka have a stronger squat.
So what we're doing is we're locking our core, so we're kind of clenching our core a little bit and pushing our butt back whilst keeping our chest as high as possible and avoiding bending over to the front. And then we go down slowly from there, trying to keep our weight on our heels and trying to keep our torso straight as possible. And we're going down from there. And key is avoiding bending forwards and avoiding bending forwards, really. That's the main thing going down, right?
The verbal cues I would give, depending on what someone's squat looks like, would be different. So, for example, someone who's anterior biased, and so they'd come onto their toes, I'd often use the verbal cue of sit onto your heels, put all the weight onto your heels. What I often wouldn't mean by that is literally put all the weight onto your heels and so your toes come off the ground. It will depend what your issue is. Some people sit too far back and fall backwards, for example. Therefore, my verbal cue as a coach would not be sit onto your heels. It would be, okay, maybe try having your chest come a little bit forward, having your hips set a little bit back so your center of gravity is more central. So it all depends on what type of issues you struggle with the squat as to how I'd sort of coach you, for example. But in terms of just what makes a good squat in general, those are pretty much the basic principles for it.
Okay. And does that change if I'm squatting with a goblet in Deadly Dozen versus if I'm squatting with the ball that I'm about to throw in Hyrox?
So both of those are examples of anterior loaded squats, meaning the weight is in front of you. Goblet, you hold the weight out in front of your chest, and a wall ball, you hold the ball out in front of your chest. So both of those are going to require a lot more core stability and strength than a rear loaded squat. So, for example, a barbell back squat or something like that, just because of where the weight's positioned. If any of the weight you're holding in front of you, that's going to want to pull you forward. If you don't brace your core and you hold the weight out in front of you and you go down to the bottom of a squat position and you just release your core, you're falling straight forward. So the intention between a wall ball and a goblet squat are very similar in that you need to practice that form of a squat in order to build up the core stability in that vulnerable position, which is going to be the bottom of the squat. If all you're used to doing is back squatting with a barbell on your back, your core is not going to be used to bracing at that point in the squat because of where the weight is distributed. So
presumably, unless your back squat is horrible, the barbell is going to help because it's going to drive your heel into the ground.
Yeah, but in terms of building yourself up, I would always consider a front squat a progression to a back squat. So I would never prescribe someone barbell front squats anyway if they don't have a proficient back squat. So for example, barbells, I would say, are far more advanced than dumbbells. So for example, a goblet squat, although it's front loaded, and I said I wouldn't prefer that to a back squat, I would always prefer a dumbbell movement to a barbell movement until you're proficient with dumbbell movement. So for example, if we're doing goblet squats, if you hold a weight out in front of you and you squat down, that's going to be a lot easier to control than a barbell sat on your front of your shoulders like this. So a goblet squat with a dumbbell and a wall ball are a good sort of starting point if you have a proficient bodyweight squat. It all comes down to how does your bodyweight squat looks like.
How do you mean?
So also I put in my notes something about if you can't do 25 air squats without an issue, you shouldn't really be adding weight to anything. All that's going to happen is if you can't do a proficient squat and you start adding weight to it, your body isn't able to carry your body weight. So why would it be able to carry your weight plus external load? Well, that's going to happen is because your body can't physically carry it or it's not used to it, you're going to end up compensating. So you're not going to be able to do the full range of motion without any weight. You then add weight, your range of motion is then going to shorten, and you're then going to start prioritizing usually the top half of the movement. Meaning instead of sitting down all the way, say before you couldn't even sit down all the way, you've then sat down 80%, and you have to stand up and you're working within that limited range of motion. You then add external load, your body therefore cannot access your full range of motion because it's too heavy. So they're going to shorten that already shortened 80% to about 60%. And now before you know it, you're doing countless and countless squats with weight at 60% of the standardized range of motion of a normal squat. And then you're going to drill that into your neuromuscular system. And so you're going to have, number one, the physiological strength for that bottom portion of the squat. And number two, your body's not going to know what that feels like. And so under no circumstance would it make any sense to add external load to a movement if the movement without any load is an issue. So I think drilling down those basics is huge.
And that goes for pretty much any weighted workout, right? If there's a bodyweight only version of that, do that until you can do 25, depending on what the thing is, but 25 plus bodyweight only, and then start doing funky stuff on top. And for you, the threshold is about 25 full depth, butt to calves ish air squats, and then you can start adding some weight.
Yeah, ish. I mean, do bear in mind a couple of factors here. One being, it's not if you do 24 great ones and fail, then you shouldn't add any weight. That's not what I'm saying. 25, that's just the ballpark number that I'm saying. But also at the same time, this is for people looking to compete in sports which hold a standard. If you're just looking to, for example, lose some weight and, gain some muscle, and you've never stepped foot in the gym before, you might not have the capacity to do a full range of squat full range of motion squat. And I'm not saying if you don't have that range of motion, don't even bother. I'm just saying if you have the capacity, or if you're trained to train an event where it's competitive, that should be the standard of which you follow. Obviously, there are some exceptions to that, but if you don't have that full range of motion and something in your hamstring tweaks every time you go to a full range of motion, or something in your knee tweaks, there's no point in pushing past that just because you should have a full range of motion squat. Everything, just know what is best for you. As a coach, that's their job. Okay, they have to know what's best for you. Obviously, you communicate that with your coach. But if you're looking to be competitive or to be held to a standard, that should be how you approach it regardless, because the standard should be upheld for everyone if they choose to go into that competition or race with that standard.
Okay, so if for those not looking to race, how much benefit is there for just normal life from practicing full depth air squatting versus just going down as far as I feel comfortable?
If you're just trying to get stronger, improve your squat, there is benefit to squatting to parallel. In certain sports, it is beneficial to only go to a quarter squat to be able to load more weight because of the movements that you carry out in a sport-specific context. And so in rugby, for example, in a scrum, your knees are not flexed past 9 degrees. They're very rarely flexed past 9 degrees. When you shoot into a tackle, it is short, quick, explosive movements from a quarter squat position. And so to rugby, for example, that is specific to them, which is why a full range of motion squat isn't always beneficial. In terms of hypertrophy, range of motion is often tied to that. And so if you're looking to simply gain a lot of muscle, within reason, a larger range of motion has proven to be helpful to gaining muscle. Again, and then you tie it back to general life. If all you're looking to do, as you said, is to do a general squat, and going past parallel is hard to do, you have to judge it by your sort of what you see as painful. So if you're hitting parallel and there is no issue, and you can do, say, 25 squats to parallel, if you're then having, as soon as you on that 26 go below parallel feel pain, there is obviously something wrong there. It's not a strength issue. It's likely not a mobility issue. If it's pain, it's likely a muscular issue or something along those lines, tendon, ligament, whatever it is. And so that might be something you need to get seen to. If it's uncomfortable or you lose form, that's likely a mobility issue because your body just isn't used to that range of motion. But if you have no issue going to parallel, and then as soon as you go a couple inches below that, then it's pain, not just discomfort, that might be something internal. So I think always judge it by pain, and always, if you're getting into squats as well, box squats are super helpful. So if you set an elevated surface at a set point at which you can go down to with no pain, practice that. And then over time, decrease the height of the box. So for example, if you set a box up just above parallel, you squat down to there for 2 weeks. Then after 2 or 3 weeks, when that's no issue at all, you put it down or take like another 2 inches off the box and squat down to there. It's all about progression and progressive overload. That doesn't just apply to weight, it applies to movements as well. So if you can apply that to squats, you can apply that to lunges. If you can't get all the way down with your knee on lunges, just add a surface where you can bring your knee down to. Whatever it is, improve your range of motion slowly over time. Don't do it in one session. Don't add weight prematurely. Okay, this is something that takes ages. It's like people who want a sub 16 Hyrox and think they can get it in 4 months. People who've got a sub 16 Hyrox have likely been doing sport, not just Hyrox, but sport or competitive training for years, and some even decades. And so it's not like they've just come into Hyrox and set a sub 60. It's just like squats. People who have a full range of motion squats are either incredibly genetically gifted or have been exercising, moving, training for most of their life. So don't just jump the gun on this, just like anything. Over weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks is how you improve this without getting injured, which is the key.
Okay, so would you say if I feel some muscular discomfort going down, that's the kind of thing I can push past? If I feel joint discomfort or pain, sharp pain of any kind, just stop and leave it?
Yes, my PhD-less opinion would be if you feel joint pain or something more, pain in general, stop, okay, and work around the injury or the barrier, not through it. But if you feel muscular discomfort, like you said, that often, if you're trained and you know your body well, you can decide whether or not that means you can keep going or not. For people who are super new, if you feel discomfort through a movement that changes just by a couple of inches, like you said, if you go into parallel, there's no issue. And then you go a couple more inches and there's discomfort. That discomfort, if you push through, there is a risk that over time that can result in an injury. And if you don't know your body very well, you won't know that that's the case. And so I would say if you're new to squatting and you do feel that sort of discomfort or pain, do go see someone about it in person, because I can't tell you that over the phone, not knowing who the heck you are. So definitely I would if you're new. If you know your body, that's different. For me, I know if I feel this way doing this movement at this point, it means this. But that takes a while to sort of know. So if you're new, I would err on the side of caution.
Okay, cool. And so let's say we've got our 25 air squats. How do we start training these squats?
Yeah, so a few ways. You've got a huge amount of variations. You've got barbell front squats, barbell back squats, goblet squats, thrusters. So for me, I do a mix of everything. Depends on what you're training for, always. But let's take the sort of hybrid approach. Let's assume that you want to train for a variety of things. So with squats, obviously, once you've got proficient air squat, the next progression would then be to add some load. And I would suggest it be in the form of a dumbbell. So that could either be dual dumbbell front loaded squats, which would be both dumbbells resting on your shoulders, or as we talked about, a goblet squat where it's one dumbbell held with both hands in front of your chest. If you have a proficient front squat, that means your core works really well and you're able to stay up tall. If you're not falling over during a front loaded squat, that means that when you get a bar on your back or when you get something rear loaded, it'll be a lot easier. And you know that obviously if your weight is sensible, that you can do that. So I'd always lean towards progressing from a dumbbell biased or a dumbbell front squat, then going into a back squat. Because if you go the other way around, you're going to often number one, it's hard to rear load a squat without a barbell. What could also be an option is doing fixed rear loaded squats. And so by fixed, I just mean on a machine where you're in a fixed position. So that could either mean a Smith machine where the bar is on a fixed rail that goes up and down. You can't move forward or backward if you wanted to. Or a hack squat where, again, the weight is loaded in a fixed position and you can only go down in one line. Both those movements will have the weight loaded on your back. But like I said, they're safer because there's no room for you to fall forward or backward during the movement because the bar or the weight goes down and up in a fixed line.
What's a hack squat?
Hack squat, you have weight loaded behind you with a pad that goes over your shoulder. You stand on a foot plate and you have handles that come over and you just go down and up on a machine-based movement. So you've got two rear-loaded squat options that are in a fixed position that stop you from falling. You've got two dumbbell movements that will help build your core stability, help build your squat, and just help you get used to the squat movement. So those would be where I'd first go if you're loading a squat. Then, accompanying that, if you've already done that dual front-loaded squat that we talked about with the dumbbells resting on your shoulder, you can then sort of go into a dumbbell thruster, which is the closest movement to a wall ball that there is, just without the coordination needed. So with the thruster, you'll start in that dual dumbbell position with the dumbbells resting on your shoulder. You'll then go down into a front squat. And as you press up on the way up, as your knees are almost locked out, you use that as almost a push press to throw those dumbbells directly overhead and lock out your elbows, and then come down, repeat. So it's a wall ball, but with dumbbells instead of a ball and without having to catch it.
Okay. And for any insurers who are listening, when Jude says to throw the dumbbells over your head, that's a figure of speech.
Yeah, so like
explosive arm extension.
Yeah, you'll need them
keep
for reps.
Good hold of the dumbbells.
Yeah,
people keep hold of the dumbbells.
And then so those are sort of the first progressions, and then obviously after that, you'll know what I mean when I say if you're doing these already with your barbell back squats, barbell front squats, anything with a barbell is usually the last thing I'd bring in once all the other options are proficient. Because it's heavier and also because it fixes you into position. So in terms of just health and safety, if you're doing a very heavy dumbbell goblet squat and you can't do another rep and you're at the bottom, you just let go and it falls. If you can't do that in a back squat or a front squat, you need some learning how to bail or how to fail, as they say, to be able to get out of there safely.
My knee injury that isn't any better now than it was 3 months ago was I did it doing a back squat where I went a little bit too heavy. I mean, I thought I was being conservative, but trying to push things a little bit. Turns out I was not being quite conservative enough. Felt a sharp pain in my kneecap. Turns out that was my cartilage complaining. For those of us who are more fragile and don't have a long history with such things, is there any way of guarding against that? I mean, my cartilage had worn out and there was nothing I could do about that. That wasn't the back squat's fault. Are back squats still a good thing to do when you're 52 years old?
I think it depends about the supporting muscle. So for anything, you want to train around it to make that movement better. So for Hyrox, for example, we say to get better at Hyrox, you don't just want to race Hyroxes. You want to train other movements around that in isolation to improve them individually and then bring them all together closer to race day. That's sort of the idea behind periodization. Similar with squats, because the barbell back squat, for example, is such a compound movement. Like I said before, there are so many muscle groups that get recruited and used during that movement. You want to train them all in isolation. Get them way stronger than they would do whilst doing purely back squats because of how you can target them. That will then carry over and make it far less likely for you to get injured. So, for example, some people might not realize it, but when they squat, their quads are, or for example, if any one of your quads, glutes, or core are lacking way behind the other two, that's what's going to give, and that's what's going to lead to the injury. So, for example, if your quads are what you won't know, but if they are something that gives out during a squat that leads to an injury, that's likely because the supporting muscles around your patella or your knee aren't strong enough. And so movements like leg extensions, leg press, which are both very safe movements and both in a fixed position, if you can build up movements like those that isolate your quads, that can then build muscle around the supporting joints that make it far less likely for you to get injured. Same with your glutes. If your glutes is something that pinged one day during squats and your quads were completely fine, the likelihood is it was your glutes that were the issue, obviously, and so you'd want to build them through isolated exercises like kickbacks, 90-90 bridges, hip thrusts. Those are all supporting movements that will help the squat itself. Hamstrings as well play a great supporting role in squats. Those need to be up to scratch. You just need to make sure that all your muscle groups you train in isolation as well as with the movement or in the sport that you're meant to be doing specifically, so that, number one, to avoid injury, but number two, to get better at them quickly. You're not going to get better at back squats by purely doing back squats. If you train the muscle groups in isolation around a back squat and also back squat, that's what is going to make you better.
Right. I guess it's like absolutely everything, I suppose, but with running, and we'll come on to that another week, but you don't just run to get better at running. You have to train glutes, core, and so on. So you're saying to get bigger quads, you're looking at leg extensions and leg presses. To get better glutes, you're looking at things like kickbacks, which you don't have to explain right now. People can Google that, but kickbacks and 90-90 bridges, which is an easy thing that you can do on a bit of floor, but it's great.
That's a lot of hamstrings as well, but yeah.
Right. You can do isolated work on quads and glutes and core and hamstrings, all of which are going to be important for your squats. You can have great quads, but if your glutes are rubbish, you're still going to struggle. And if your glutes and your core are great, but you've got tiny quads, that's going to be a problem too, right?
Yeah, just to lightly touch. Yeah, exactly. To slightly touch on your core and your back. Those two are also super important. If those give out, you're likely going to lean forward. That's going to then start biasing other muscle groups that aren't trained to deal with that sort of load. And so that's also how you get injured. So core bracing exercises like weighted planks, ab rollouts, and then also back exercises that support your spinning erector, which is that small lower back muscle that is super important to grow really strong. You've got back extensions. GHDs also help. Just movements like that, you need to make sure that you're training all the supporting muscles as well. Like you said, if any one of those is severely lacking, that will likely lead to an injury through if you do that movement quite often.
You say you need to be training basically 5 different body areas to help you do squats without doing any squats. So squats, especially weighted squats, are really only a good thing to be doing if you're already doing these other things, all of which is a good reason to get a trainer, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think
do you know anyone who might do that?
Yeah, so great plug. I do one-to-one coaching. Please message me. I'd love to coach you, and I know a lot about squats, so why wouldn't you?
There we go.
Thank you.
Okay, so so that's how to train them in broad terms. And when it comes to race day, any particular racing advice you would give with squat movements?
I would say get used to handling them under fatigue. And so get used to doing them when you're tired. So it's all well and good doing 5x5 on back squat. That would be useful to do on a strength day, separate from everything else. But you also need to train it not just short and heavy, but with big sets and light. So you want to do it light so that you can incorporate big sets, whether that be just with 5 kg, 10 kg in that goblet position. But you need to get used to doing a load of reps. So increase your volume, again, gradually, and then pair that with an aerobic exercise. So usually with these fitness races, you'll have just come off of a row, a run, a ski, a bike, whatever it is, usually a run. But you'll be doing some form of aerobic-based exercise, meaning a cardio piece of equipment or running, essentially. into squats. So you need to be able to used to doing them in a state of fatigue, usually aerobic fatigue. So when you're out of breath. So if you have, say, once a week, you have like a circuit style workout, I would suggest having either once or twice a week, incorporating one of those and get used to doing them when you're tired, not just when you're fresh at the start of a workout. Because even in hybrid games, although it is I believe it's the second workout or 100 wall balls, you've still done 500 meters of running, an assault bike for 50 calories, 500 meters of running, and then you're into them. And in Hyrox, obviously, as everyone knows, it's the last station. You've been working out for anywhere from 50 minutes to 2 hours before you come to that. So you need to get used to working squats. And then Deadly Dozen, it's in the middle of the race almost. So you need to get used to squatting with small amounts of load whilst being fatigued.
And is the best way to do that to run, then do this?
It could be anything. I would bias towards running more into squats and then running out of squats more than the ergs, but they're also super helpful if you can't run for whatever reason. So, and I would also make sure that you're doing them at a lighter weight. Just producing a load of reps and getting your volume up, increasing your volume whilst under fatigue will be very helpful.
Cool. Okay, that's good stuff. Just leading a bit more into racing advice with squat motions. One we've mentioned before on the pod, which is with wall balls specifically, you get your aim a bit wrong. I've thrown the ball over the target once, but I've only done that once. Usually I have the opposite
consequence
problem
as well.
Why, what was that?
You smacked a judge on the skull.
I did not hit the judge directly on the skull, did I?
There's some opposite dude, yeah. Smacked him straight in the head.
I've not got the lawsuit about that yet. Perhaps I need to check my mailbox. Sorry. Very sorry for judge in Warsaw. Okay, so leaving that aside, usually my problem is what everyone's problem usually is, which is not I've thrown it too far, is I haven't thrown it far enough or hard enough, or I'm too close to the target, which usually means you kind of like, oh, I've thrown it, and then rather than it coming back to me, it kind of drops. Let's say it's 1.5 feet in front of me. Do I catch it or do I let it drop?
I would let it drop. With it being so far away from your center of gravity or center of mass, if you're trying to then catch it, the amount of lower back muscles you're asking to recruit and brace extremely hard all of a sudden is huge. And that's sometimes what leads to injuries, is when you recruit a huge amount of small muscles very quickly out of nowhere. And then I would just, in that scenario, just let it drop, reset, bring the ball back in. So a way to help with that is possibly, if you're doing wall balls in particular, is holding the ball in two hands, reaching out with fully extended arms, making sure that the end of the wall ball just touches where the target is or where the pole is, and then throwing from that position. That usually lends to a good distance away from the target. The more you do that, the more you're going to get used to it, the less you need to physically reach out, touch, and then go into your squat.
So you want to be an arm's length away from the target, although at a Hyrox event, the wall is behind the target.
It would more just be reaching out till you're underneath it. If you're positioned right away from the target, it's not possible for it to drop too far in front of you. If it is dropping too far in front of you, you are objectively too far away.
Okay.
Or so you've literally just tickled it, and it's just
right. That's what I'm saying. There are a couple of times where I've tickled
it is hard for that to happen, but yeah.
Okay. So foot position is important. Getting that right first time. Any other advice about squatty stuff in races?
I would say, unless you're on, sorry to bring it up again, but rep 90 of a wall ball, for example, and the race is about 30 seconds from finishing, I wouldn't go to failure. So what I mean is, for example,
Cole learn that.
Yeah, but like I said, he gets a pass. So in Deadly Dozen, it's in the middle. In hybrid games, the squat pattern's at the start. You don't want to go to muscular failure on any movement, not just squats, at that point during a race. In a Hyrox, it's the last station. So if there is any shot of you finishing it without breaking up the movement, and you're going to be completely screwed after, fine, do it, push through, and make sure that you do that as quickly as you can. If you're at the start of the race and you go to muscular failure on wall balls, or goblet squats or thrusters, whatever the movement is, you're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for that later on, because there's going to be a huge amount of lactic acid build up in your muscles. You're not going to be able to run after the station properly. You're going to make up a little bit of time if you somehow do it in the race, and you will lose it all and more on the subsequent runs and stations. So I would just say manage your effort. Stop if it's one of those events where it's at the start of the race or you're on rep 12 or 13 of the 100 in Hyrox. Stop 2 to 3 before failure. Take a few seconds, then go again. In my opinion, wall balls are more mentally based than any other station in Hyrox. 100%. Like, yes, you can only physically do so many squats with a 9, 6, or 4 kg wall ball, but you are capped by your mind so much more than you actually think you are. If you don't think you can do any more, do 2 more. Which then makes it really hard when you say don't go to failure, like 3 or 4 shy of failure, then stop. This is more when I'm talking about if you are 10 or 20 from the end and you think, oh, I probably can't do any more. I think if you honestly say to yourself, I have 10 or 20 more and then I am done and I've done an hour and a half of work, don't break now. You've got 30 seconds left. Keep going. It's hard to balance. That's why wall balls are so tough, because often people can't find the balance between stopping 3 reps before failure, if that's what they're thinking about. And the amount of thoughts that go through your head in that station while you're squatting 100 times is countless.
Leaving aside the fact that every other week you persecute me about it, about pausing at 94. But I think I'm okay at sitting in my pain cave if it was only pain that kept me from the last 6 wall balls.
It was.
I mean, I don't know. That was one event. But what's going through my head isn't, shut up. What's going through my head isn't just, this is really painful and I'm terrible and I can't do it. Although, of course, those thoughts go through your head. But part of what I'm thinking about is, am I going to damage myself? It's not just I can't. It's, will a tendon ping off somewhere? I mean, now that I have a history of tendons literally exploding if I overdo something, that's just made that element of racing worse, because
what I think about is, I understand that point of view, and if you're listening to this, my piece of advice would be, if you genuinely fear pain or long-term damage, stop. However, what is the likelihood of 6 controlled reps with 6 kg thrown up to a 10k target going to do for you long-term? The likelihood is nothing.
I don't know. Okay.
The likelihood is you will be completely fine. It's just going to hurt. And it's going to hurt so much that you think it's going to be an injury. But the likelihood of 6 reps with 6 kilograms in front of you when you're used to doing a lot more is very minimal that something's going to happen. That's my thought process.
Okay. So there's the insurance statement, which is,
and then
if it hurts, if it hurts, don't do it. And there's the, dad, suck it up and get to the finish.
Yeah, knowing what I've said now, in Glasgow, I'm going to break at 98 or something, but whatever.
Michael won't let you break at 98 in the doubles. I know that's not going to happen.
Oh, no, not the doubles. It's the solos.
Right. Well, yeah, he hopes he'll break at 98 in the solos. And on that bombshell,
I'm beating him.
Oh,
you're getting smoked on Sunday, Michael.
Okay, cool. So that was what squats are. That's the mechanics of squats. That's the training of squats. That's the racing with squats and all the kinds of things that can blow up when you do squats, which is basically nothing, apparently, because nothing can ever go structurally wrong with controlled lightweight squatting. You'll be fine, says Jude. That's the last word on that one.
I was now texting Grandad. Hang on. There we go.
So thank you for all that about squats, Jude. The reason I'm laughing is Jude took a few seconds out of recording to advise my father, his granddad, not to buy carbon-plated shoes, especially not to buy cheap carbon-plated shoes from Lidl.
Lidl, yes. What a shop.
So
I don't know about their shoe products, though.
Well, I was going to say, they've come out with this £40 shoe, which might be less than £250 entirely because they don't price gouge. More likely, it's a combination of they don't price gouge and they're not that great.
Knowing Lidl, it's also probably quite high in protein. So they're known for that.
So Lidl shoes are unnecessary carbon-plated, overly high in protein, and not that awesome, which is not the most thorough reviews, but it's all you're getting for right now. So next week's movement is what, Jude? Pressing. Okay, so we've got squats done. We're now going upper body, and next week is pressing. A quote for the week, apropos what we've just been talking about, is from the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, noted hybrid athlete, who said, "The squat is the foundation of all leg exercises." That doesn't strike me as tremendously controversial. Is that true?
I believe so. Quite topical. So I'm impressed you found that one.
You're welcome. So Arnie and Jude are united in believing that the squat is the foundation of all leg exercises. Great. Glad we agree on that one. It's a good quote for a change. Let's have close up with a bit of a look at our week in training. You've been starting your taper week, right, for Glasgow?
Yeah, it's not very fun. Sunday, I did one 2-hour session. Today I'm doing one 90-minute session. Tomorrow I've got one 45-minute session. And even though it's been,
When you say
2
tomorrow,
days
today
since
we're recording this on a Tuesday. Today is Tuesday.
Gosh. Yeah. So
So
I've been tapering now for 3 days. And obviously, biologically, you cannot lose fitness, any sort of recognizable fitness in 3 days, but it feels like I am. When you go from training 25, 26 active hours a week to training, essentially, this will be like a 14-hour week minus the competitions, it feels like I'm, getting a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not. So I just got to trust the taper, trust that this is actually going to be beneficial for me and that I'll feel fresher on race day. Because essentially the idea is to go into race day feeling like I cannot wait to race. This is like all your fitness is going to pour out Friday and on Sunday, hopefully. And it's just been not a lot. So I've had a couple of high intensity sessions, couple of low intensity sessions, and I've got my final high intensity session tomorrow, which is going to be a half rock style workout, which will just be half the runs, half the stations, ideally at doubles pace. So I've been doing a lot of over pace work this week, meaning I consider my solos my race pace. And so anything quicker than that, I consider over pacing. And because I've got doubles on the Friday, which is my focus this time, I've been doing a lot of doubles work, which will be faster running, faster stations. And so I've just been touching up on that to make sure that my speed is there for come 3 days time. Yeah. How about you? Have you started getting into frequency yet?
I've started. Yes.
You have?
So, yeah, I've got weight loss is my thing. So I've started intermittent fasting again, which is horrible. And as soon as I get off this, I'm going to eat. I've got my homemade protein energy balls. I'll have a couple of them. And I'll try to avoid my homemade honeycomb dipped in chocolate, which I also made the other day. They're arguably even better.
Wow.
But yes, so training has involved trying to lose a bit of weight, but also I've just been doing I don't know what you call it, but a combination of one or more of running, bike, and rowing. Yesterday, I went for an hour-long walk, and then I did a run. But it being so hot where I am, I was knackered before I started the run. But I kind of jogged slowly round for 25 minutes, and that feels like progress. Well, it is progress at this point. Just getting back into it, and after the first one, there's something about doing multiple stations, and I went from feeling like a useless lump to quite athletic in the space of about 45 minutes. Not because I was being athletic, but just because I was doing high output stuff. And as I was saying to your mum yesterday, I've gone from looking at myself, feeling I'm disgusting and I'm enormous and I'm completely unfit, to now feeling fit and then looking at myself being surprised that I am in fact significantly overweight compared to my racing weight. So that also is progress. It's just I feel better. And when I feel like I'm a bit fitter, I want to work out. When I feel like I'm enormous, I don't want to work out at all. I don't get to be big and think, oh, I want to work out now. I get to be big and think the last thing I want to do is working out. I only want to work out when I feel like I'm a little bit athletic. And and it only takes 2 or 3 days to achieve that feeling, and that's where I am again now. So I'm hopeful to carry that on and get back onto the program I'd only just started that you wrote me. So that's where
you seem to respond quite mentally how I do physiologically in different respects. So when you take a bunch of time off and then you obviously feel awful, but then within 3 to 4 days of being consistent, you feel a load better again. Like it makes a huge difference. Like for me, because of where I am physiologically with my diet, if I don't, it never happens for 2 days in a row, but say I eat really badly, I will notice a difference instantly for the next 3 days. Equally, if my diet is tracked to the gram for like all it takes is like 3-4 days, and I'll see an instant sort of aesthetic difference. So it's like my body responds really quickly, which can be really good or really bad, depending on sort of which way I approach it, and sort of similar with you on the mental side. And finally, verdict on Miami. Are you doing it?
I want to do it and I don't want to do it. If I do, I don't want anyone seeing me doing it.
I'm not going to upload it anywhere if you don't want me to.
In Vancouver, I was really excited because my wife was going to be there to watch me do it, and I was not at my peak, but I'm okay. And I was really pleased she got to see me do what I was quite proud of. This time, I'm miles off that. And the only reason I'm doing it is to put a marker down and go, this is what bad is. Let's make sure that it never gets this bad again. And it's just going to be a struggle fest that's way below my own very limited potential. I feel like if I'm looking terrible and my wife is there, I feel like there'd be something upsetting about that. I mean, I know if she was racing and she looked like she was dying, I would find that upsetting. I remember my dad, your granddad, telling me when at the family relay last time when I was doing the wall balls and I was braking for the 50th time and my heart rate was in the mid 160s and I was just desperately trying to drag air into my lungs. He was quite upset. And I'm like, yeah, I can see that. If Jude was doing that, I would be upset. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I want to do it and I don't want to do it. We'll see.
Well, maybe in next week's Glasgow recap and pressing episode, you'll have a conclusion on that.
Then there certainly needs to be a verdict by then. Yeah, we'll have a verdict then. Cool. Well, thanks very much, Jude. Thanks for all that input. And as I say, next week we're looking at presses. And in the meantime, I've been Paul Reynolds.
I've been Jude Reynolds.
Thank you and speak to you soon. Bye-bye.